Hi friends, I'm Scott Giles, minister and hypnotist, and welcome to Power Talk, my video blog where I cover topics that interest me, focusing on how you can use the power of your mind to take control of your life. If you want to know more about my professional work or sign up for my free e-newsletter Power Lines, check out my website, which I'll tag in the description. Well, today I want to explore, as something of a thought experiment, a new theological concept making the rounds of academic thinkers. It's called post-doom theology, and what a name. Well, I found myself a little put off by it. However, as part of my ongoing effort to keep my brain from turning into mush, I find it helpful to sometimes wrestle with difficult ideas. Perhaps you might find the same. Now, the reason I'm looking at this material is that I believe in facing the world with a basic positive expectancy. And that can be hard when you turn on the TV and you hear people predicting world war or environmental collapse and so on. So post-doom theology is a way of dealing with those fears in a manner that's constructive. Well, post-doom theology came into being with the work of theologian Michael Dowd in 2019. His idea is that while we all hope that the human community and the natural biosphere will continue and prosper, there is the possibility it might not. Now, there are scientists who tell us that while our climate is changing, we're going to be okay. Perhaps the situation isn't as bad as has been feared. Perhaps new technology like air scrubbers or cloud seeding will enable us to head off the worst of it, and so on. Perhaps our social and political evolution will continue, and we will find our way to world peace instead of world war. I hope so too. But as Dowd asks, what if it doesn't work? What will happen if everything goes pear-shaped and the future is one of hardship for the human community and our planet? His point is that positive thinking is all well and good, but one should give some thought to a plan B in case that doesn't work out. And I agree. In Stoic philosophy, there is a principle called premeditatio malorum, or think ahead of time about bad things. Something like 2,000 years ago, a philosopher named Seneca would suggest this principle as a way of proposing that imagining how things might go wrong is useful because it can prepare us for setbacks so that we don't find ourselves suddenly with no idea of how to proceed if our hopes are not realized. And, this is sound practice. So it is reasonable to wonder, as the post-doom theologians have, about what we'll do, those of us who are around then anyway, if there is in fact some sort of civilizational or environmental collapse. The result has been a few theologians like Michael Dowd, Father Richard Rohr, Jim Bendel, and John Halstead, who have published a series of articles and given a series of talks. There aren't currently any books on this that I can cite, but they've done some public thinking about this. And what they've come up with, on the whole, is a concept that has come to be called deep adaptation, which is actually an intense expression of faith in human ingenuity and resilience. In the Middle Ages, there was a Spanish mystic who has come to be called Saint John of the Cross. He was a Roman Catholic Carmelite priest who came up with a concept that has long been accepted among spiritual practitioners and advisors. It's called the dark night of the soul. The idea is that when one goes through some awful experience, the dark night, and then you emerge on the other side of it, when you look back, you will often see that the experience paid you some benefit. It may have lifted you out of comforting but false illusions. For example, you might think you have a perfect marriage, but then you find your partner's been cheating. Well, after you've dealt with that and you look back, you will probably agree that while it was lousy to go through, it is better for you to have discovered and dealt with that than to just go on being deceived. In post-doom theology, there is the idea that if there is some awful experience that the human community will go through because of war, ecology, what have you, it will be a kind of dark night of the soul. However, human beings are incredibly adaptable and clever. We evolved in warm equatorial climates, yet we spread out to the poles on our planets, went through an ice age, and we figured out how to do that. We developed clothing, insulation, harnessed fire, and so on. Therefore, these thinkers suggest that while it might not be fun, we'll figure out a way to continue. And they propose that there are 3 phases that we'll go through. So here they are, understanding that they're not sequential. They can overlap and come in different orders, and some may be in progress now. The first phase is resilience. We will naturally try to preserve what is good. And you could argue we're doing that right now. We're developing green energy. We're paying attention to chemicals in the environment that we need to deal with. There are remote warehouses where we store seeds that the human community might need in the future. There are stockpiles of provisions. Some individuals do this, but governments do the same, such as the Strategic Reserve here in the United States. We take steps to keep our art treasures safe. We archive information to use in the future. The second phase is called relinquishment. That is, it is predicted that we will figure out there are some things that we just need to let go of in a different world. An example might be conspicuous consumption. The drive to get more and more toys to impress your neighbors. We might need to reform our laws to spread wealth and good things to people more widely, instead of having a 1% that keep getting richer. We might figure out that reliable mass transportation is better and fall out of love with the individually owned automobile. Finally, the third phase is restoration. We'll figure out a new way of being in the world that is adapted to whatever changed circumstances we face. Examples of this, we might decide to retire our use of crops that are thirsty and require lots of water, and substitute crops that grow better in a different kind of world. And instead of growing wheat, we might shift to some of the ancient grains, such as amaranth, that were grown long ago in a time before irrigation. In fact, if you want to get started on this, the next time you buy bread, go over to the freezer section of your supermarket instead of the bakery. Look for something called Ezekiel bread. It's sold frozen and you thaw it at home, but it's made with ancient grains. And it's really good bread. You won't miss the wheat. There are lots of things like this. Instead of trying to grow fruits that are not native to the American continent, maybe we should check out those like the pawpaw that are native to our soil and grow well and effortlessly here. In fact, read some 19th century American poetry. Many poets mentioned the pawpaw and how delicious they were, yet probably none of you have ever had one. Heck, when I was in my first church after graduation, I was in a rural country parish where heating oil was extremely expensive. So I heated my whole home with a Fisher Mama Bear wood-burning stove. It worked fine. It was different than just turning the thermostat, but, you get used to it. And I had a nice, toasty, warm home that didn't bankrupt me with energy costs. So as I read about all of this, I realized that the post-doom visionaries might be talking about a possible future that wouldn't be all bad. Now, I do think mindless consumerism is bad. People spend way too much buying toys. And maybe a more deliberate and appreciative lifestyle of living more gently on the planet wouldn't be a bad thing. Now, I sincerely hope we will never need such a plan B. But if we do, perhaps it's okay to have faith that we'll figure one out and we'll make it work okay. Thank you for your time and attention today. I'll be back next week with another talk on a different subject. I'd like to invite you to join me. It helps me a lot if you tell others about my videos, so please like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell. If you're wondering if I can be of help to you, feel free to reach out through my website for a free, no-obligation screening call, and we'll talk about it. Have a great week.